I remember waking up today around 10:30 in the morning and getting up around that time. As Dad was working essentially to move some stuff from his apartment unit to his new house. Or more often than not, generally cleaning up around the apartment unit in order to prepare for the day he moves out. In order to move into his new house. It's currently 11 p.m. I got up around the time I did, despite going to bed around 4:30 in the morning. And I naturally woke up around this time. I spent the first hours of today and the time after I woke up until around 2 p.m. making various edits in Lunapic to the interior convenience store custom prop. Until I felt satisfied with the results. I tried using the dehaze option. I don't know if that actually did anything in the end, anything that was really significant. It was meant based off a bit of research I did after the fact. Apparently it's supposed to remove either blurriness or noise from a photo. After thinking it over, what I think I'm dealing with is compression that's being done when I make screenshots in order to get the images I need to make the custom props. In this case, what I'm doing right now is trying to do color correction again on some simpler custom props that I plan to use to make a custom pupil position so that Kate is looking directly at her son. I realized today, after I was done with that interior custom prop, I opened up TechSmith Camtasia 2019, took the last manual save of the DH99 parentheses 17 project, because Camtasia wasn't able to retrieve the autosave of that project, and the parentheses 18 version has the new first raw video file copy of UNP that I'm actually currently working on, but I can't add it in yet for 19, which is now parentheses 19 project draft. Because since it's a new raw video file, technically, that I put at the beginning of the timeline instead of at the end, I'll have to move all of the edits to the right of the timeline or forward on it by exactly however long this new first raw video file ends up being. Which is currently 1.5 minutes, and I haven't added in all of the scenes I want to add in yet. I'm currently working on a brief scene where initially I thought I would have to give both of Caesar's parents side views of their heads, which Beyond Studio doesn't offer. They only have front views and 3/4 views of the heads. So I had to make that myself using a combination of shape props and custom props on my end. But as it turns out, I probably don't actually need those side views, since if I did those, it would kind of be like they were looking at each other, and that's not the intent. The intent is, at this point, that Caesar's mom looks at him, I decided. Based off the fact that later in the episode she stays with her son Caesar while Caesar's dad goes out. So keep it the way it is. Beyond Studio only really has an option to either look forward, look to the left, look to the right, or for one expression only, look down. I need the look down expression in order to create a loving expression from Caesar's mom, but I need the pupils themselves to go diagonally down in a sort of way. So I first used a new technique I found while doing research on essentially no compression screenshots. The snipping tool takes screenshots as PNGs, which are supposed to be lossless compression format, a lossless compression format, but it means after the compression happens, the image is restored, but apparently not perfectly. At least that's my current theory. So I found online a technique for pressing this print screen button on my keyboard. Essentially with the draft video completely open like this, except the first time I did it using an extra scene in order to isolate first one of Caesar's mom's pupils, and then I did it again in order to isolate her whole head, all the while with the background being pure red, since I found a red screen in most cases works better than a green screen. I then use the transparent background function on those two created images. What I would do is take the screenshot that was created through OneDrive, sent to OneDrive, after it was created due to me pressing that print screen button. I would copy it and then paste it into Microsoft Paint. Crop the image in Paint, save it as PA, capital P, lowercase a, and then I would crop again in Lunapic and then use transparent background in order to isolate just the pupil. And then in the case of the other custom prop, remove the eyeballs completely so that I could put the pupils in front of most likely a completely white rectangle. That way I can simulate the eyeballs and the pupils so that I have full control of direction of the pupils. Around 5 p.m., Dan and I went out to first pick up his friend Bill, and then we went to Brody's on the Bay. It's kind of odd that a place close to a big body of water, basically a place with a lakeside view, would be open at this time of year, as it's pretty much fall now. But when I asked at one point during the stay there, during which Dad and Bill watched a football game or two simultaneously on flat screen TVs. We got a Cobalt pizza, which is a pizza with caramelized onions and other things. Yeah, and both Dad and me got an order of wings, in this case with Brody's secret sauce, which tasted pretty good to me. Bill got an order for himself, this one with traditional sauce, but he wasn't feeling very hungry and didn't want to take him home for later, so Dan and I had some of his order. Then, in total, I had just one glass of beer, and as for the rest, I simply had several glasses of water over 2 to 3 hours. Then we took Bill back to his apartment unit, whereupon we went in order to retrieve this big package full of polystyrene. Based on looking at it, once I got it into the spare room like this and found that place for it, which was relatively easy, though I accidentally, while going up the flight of stairs to Dad's apartment unit, I accidentally hit Dad with that cardboard box a couple of times in quick succession, because by that point I was feeling tired, and it was a pretty big package, and at that point I didn't have very good grip on it, basically holding it from the top with one hand. But I said sorry for doing that, and that it was an accident. Then Dad made me a cup of coffee. I think it was around 9 p.m. at that point in the morning, and throughout the noon and afternoon hours, I had a few cups of coffee. During those hours before we went to Brody's, I had just a muffin, and we had several cups of coffee. I tried to help out a little as Dad worked to clean up his apartment unit during the morning, noon, and afternoon hours. Although some of the stuff I brought into the living room, he ended up bringing back into the spare room because he primarily focused on cleaning up the living room. This cup is mostly consists of coins at this point. I believe he found that stuff in the spare room and around the living room as he briefly cleaned it up. By briefly, I mean the spare room. He mostly focused on the living room. I put my college textbooks, some of them at least, into this cardboard box, along with some I think they're labeled as composition books, but it's just as accurate to describe them as notebooks. They're books with full of blank lined paper that you have full ability to make not blank. Although there's only one of these in there. Most of the notebooks Dad found I put into a plastic bag that contains some extra clothes and a folder I packed sentimental items into, along with a few other folders that also contain sentimental items, mostly from when I used to go to Brockport. As part of his efforts to clean up the apartment unit throughout the day, at one point Dad cleaned up some of the cabinets, primarily the ones that if you stood sideways in the kitchen area, they would be to the right of you. And prior to this contained things such as a box of mac and cheese, Spiral I believe, and a can of chicken noodle soup. But now they're completely empty, save for a wedge which Dad can use to keep the door of one of the cabinets open. Oof! That was my reaction when Dad first showed me this coin in the afternoon during his cleanup efforts. Kind of looks like a failed attempt at making one of those novelty coins from one of those machines that I think back in the day, some years ago. I don't know if you still see them these days, but I think you would primarily see these at amusement parks and whatnot. I think at one point I said that it looked like it had been run over by a steamroller or something to that effect. Though at this time, some of the cabinets in the kitchen area still contain some stuff.